Hey everyone, Matt here on another edition of Ask Ron. Ron, how you doing today?
I'm great, man. We got a hurricane going on down here, but other than that, everything's cool.
That's right.
Tornado on the north side of town, so I got my eyes peeled.
I know we're under tornado warning down here too.
Yeah,
All right. Well, Ron, we got, I think, a total of 6 questions today. So let's go ahead and jump right into them.
let's do it.
The first question we have today, in fact, the first 2 questions we had today are from Perzina, who is in Georgia. Perzina says, is the Gold Club membership website different from your private lending website?
The private lending website is part of the Gold Club site. It's all the same site. If you open up your Gold Club site, you'll see where on the left where it says private lender site or something like that. You punch on that and up will pop your private lender site.
There we go. All right, and then Perzina's next question is, how do I send the daily FSBOs that I receive from the Gold Club to the VAs so they can call them and get the info for doing a deal?
Well, because of that question, it leads me to believe that you haven't set up a VA account yet. Because if you had, that would be one of the first things that they would discuss with you. So we start there. And then you ask that question to your VA.
Yep, got to have the VA first. All right. Moving on, our next question is from Karen, who is with us in Florida.
Hey, Karen, I hope you're not in the middle of this mess.
Right. All right. Karen says, I'm attending the Quick Start School in Jacksonville in a little over a week, and I've recently paid for mentoring. Should I try to get my mentor before the training or just wait to meet them at the event so I can see who might be a good fit in person?
Well, I can't chat with you on the answer to that question, but it depends on whether you know a mentor or talked to one or seen one on one of our presentations that you like. But keep in mind, if you get one now, well, first, I'd definitely get one now because it's now starting next week. And you should have one between now and next week so that if you actually bring any leads to class and we actually get you a deal, you would want that mentor on your team immediately after you leave instead of getting one there and then we have to take several days to get you in the loop. If you get on there today, you can probably have the mentor and maybe even have your first conversation with them on Monday if you're lucky. I mean, this thing starts Tuesday, so if you tell them you'd like to have a conversation between now and Tuesday, they might be able to work that because you have a first orientation call with your mentor. What? She's in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Well, frankly, any of our mentors would work well with you, but I don't even know if you're going to bring leads to class because if you do, we're going to call them and try to make deals for you. Mm-hmm. So if that's not the case, then maybe the rush is off. But if that is the case, the rush is on.
Yep. No, that makes sense. All right, there you go, Karen. Okay, the next question we have is a little bit lengthy. And this one from Mary, who's also in Florida. Mm-hmm. Mary Lee says, I have a listing at the moment in Florida, and I have suggested to the seller to sell with direct financing. The buyer is my business partner. How we can work with a wraparound mortgage and wholesale this deal to somebody else. The mortgage is $195,000, and the mortgage payments are $1,400 a month. The seller wants to live there and charge 8% interest. He is open to discounting the difference while he's living there. And he knows the buyer wants to purchase with hard money, so the lease will be around $2,400 to $2,500. The seller wants to pay his loan, which is $195,000, and finance the rest with 8% interest to the buyer. The house was built in 2020. There are no improvements needed, no HOA or CCDs, and it pre-qualifies for 100 financing. The seller wants to sell close to $360,000. What will be the best strategy? I have received 2 cash offers as a listing agent, one for $295,000 and the other for $287,000. The seller said no, he is happy to live there while he offers direct financing. Also, he is open to anything while he makes the price he is asking.
Well, Mary, thank you for that short question. And fortunately for you, I read it before this started, or I would have no idea what you just said. You might want to keep that in mind when you're presenting a question to me or anyone else. You better read it back to yourself and see if you could figure out what it says, assuming you didn't write it. However, here's what I picked up from it. You've got a listing on a seller who wants to sell his house for $360,000. You say he wants a direct sale, but then you say he's willing to take back a mortgage after you pay off the debt of $195,000. So those two totally contradict each other. No buyer is going to be able to go to the bank and just borrow $195,000 and allow the seller to put a second mortgage. I mean, no bank will allow the buyer to do that. So that's totally out of the question, obviously. Secondly, he's asking more than retail price because you've already had two offers very close together, which ought to indicate that that's more of the market value. Your seller is just grossly overpriced his house and looking for a miracle. And then you talk about wholesaling. How are you going to wholesale a house that the seller is asking retail price all cash for? I must be missing something here, because obviously you are. I strongly suggest you get to my boot camp coming up, especially if you live in the same state we're having it in. I won't be back to Florida for another year, because all of the basics of the business are just gone, shot with just your question, which honestly, it doesn't make any sense to begin with. Here's what I think. I think you're dealing with a golden turd and a waste of your time. There's no way your partner is going to buy this property because he has to pay a retail price for it. If I were you, I'd do some real serious comps if you haven't already and figure out what the real value is and make the seller aware of that. And if he's still looking for some pie in the sky offer, you probably got better things to do, would be my opinion. Yeah. Deal with the people who want to deal with you and get rid of the rest at lightning speed.
There you go.
In fact, think about it. Just how much time have you wasted on this property already? You've got a totally unreasonable seller.
Yep. All right. There you go, Marilee. Come to the boot camp. Okay, our next two questions are going to be from Carrie, who is out in California.
Okay.
Carrie says, property values are increasing rapidly. What do you think about that? Would that change the dynamic of lease option?
She said they're decreasing rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, they are decreasing rapidly, as they are decreasing to some degree around the country. However, that doesn't change the dynamics of lease options. You can chalk that up into an asset for you, because that means that the sellers are getting more motivated. They know the market is declining. They're going to be easier to deal with. And as time goes on, they're going to be easier and easier to deal with, both in the ugly house and the pretty house business. I am not the least bit worried about the prices coming down. If I put a tenant buyer in the property, I'm going to put them in there at above today's price. Worst case scenario, 2 years from now, the prices have dropped and they want to buy. There's so many ways to handle that. First thing I do is go back and to tell the seller, I've got a cash buyer, but we got to knock the price down. How are they not going to agree? Because it's them that wants to get paid off, and it's them that wants to get their loan paid off. They got more to gain than anybody. And then there's always a short sale. I remember back in the days when 40% of the property in America were over leveraged, and it was very easy to go to the bank. Somebody wanted to come in and buy it closer to what it was really worth at that time. The bank instantly would short sale it down to get the payoff on a qualified buyer that is in cash, and will get that asset that's about to become defaulted off of their books. So there's plenty of ways to handle this. And that's assuming you even put a tenant buyer to the house that even goes to the bank and gets a loan to begin with, which is 50-50 shot at best. And the reality is, if the value comes down after the tenant buyer buys the house, technically that's the buyer's problem. They agreed to pay X. If they don't want to pay X, then they can leave. They leave their deposit. You go release it at a price lower. But first, you want to try to do everything you can to lower the price for them, because they won't get financed for more than what it appraises for. But again, I mean, think about it that way. It's really not your issue, but it kind of is, because you'd like to get this buyer in the house that they want to buy and not waste their deposit. So there's plenty of ways to handle that. If you get into that situation, just let me know and I'll show you what to do next.
All right, there you go, Carrie. And her next question is, when you go to the seller to discuss terms, do you go with the contract? How does that work?
Well, first of all, I don't go to the seller to discuss terms without pre-screening them on the telephone and using my scripts, which gives me an indication of what the terms are going to be before I even leave. I'm not leaving my desk until I know that they're amenable to some kind of terms, even if they're not totally accepted. So when I go, the worst that's going to happen is I'm going to renegotiate a few points. And I absolutely take a contract with me, because my closing question is, if I come out to your house and we agree upon all of the terms, are you ready to sell your house now and get some paperwork done while I'm there? If the answer is not yes to that question, I'm not going to their house. So of course I'm going with a contract. If I go at all, a lot of houses are bought today without you visiting the house, period, all over the country. I got students buying houses in states far away from where they live. They get pictures of the house, and usually they have boots on the ground, somebody there to go look at the house. But even then, that's not hard to get if you don't know anybody there. In fact, what am I thinking? I got a local home buyer society right here, and I've got 2 houses right now that they brought in, and they're 150 miles from me. So I'll never go see the house, but they will if we get a contract on them and we actually get ready to close on them. Everything's virtual today.
Yep, that's
I mean,
right.
look at you and me right now, huh? 2 different buildings.
Yeah,
and yet the world goes on. My whole company is operating virtual from home, most of it.
Yep, that's right. All right, Ron, we've come to our final question of the day. This one's from Eric, and he does not list his state, but Eric says, would you recommend doing this long distance? I live in New Jersey, and it is not an investor-friendly state. Not to mention houses here are expensive. I would rather do it where houses are more affordable.
Okay. Well, first of all, Eric, I don't know how many students I got in New Jersey, but there's a ton of them. And when you say it's not an investor-friendly state, that tells me you really are not aware of the definition of investor-friendly. There is no such term. There is no such definition to that term. I don't even know what that means. That's like saying, how much does a house cost? Who knows? Investor friendly, I think you're indicating that it's easy to do deals there. Well, good luck with that. Okay. Doing deals is not about your competition. It's about seeking out the sellers that are best suited to do business with you and following up with them with a phone call, with a script, and dealing with the ones who come through. The more qualified the lead, the more of those you're going to convert. The less qualified, the less you're going to convert. Now, the mistake a lot of people make is that they go online and find people advertising online and think they're going to make a fortune calling all these sellers. And that's the lowest quality lead there is people advertising online. There's way better leads than that. So moving is not going to help you one bit. I can tell you that right now. You can't do it in New Jersey, won't do it in any other state in the union. Now, as far as lowering lower price properties in the terms business, that would be the opposite of what you want to do. And, you know, if you're a medium price house, it's $600,000. That's good. I'd certainly rather live where you are than a medium price house of $200,000, because that means your entire market is educated to know that they got to buy these houses at a lot higher price. That means much bigger down payments for you, much bigger monthly spreads, way more appreciation, way more depreciation, way more debt. Everything is better with the higher prices. So count yourself blessings that you actually live there and you're forced to deal with the larger numbers instead of a city like most where they got the really cheap numbers and of course they got higher numbers. Look at Jacksonville. Our median price around here is only about $200,000, but we got multi-million-dollar houses too. There are some cities where you don't even have that luxury. It's all cheap crap. Therefore, you got to deal into cheap crap. You got to do a lot of deals to make any real money. I'd rather be where you are, man. And there's nothing unfriendly about New Jersey. You do have to use an attorney to close, but that's a blessing as far as I'm concerned. I'm glad the state mandates that you use an attorney to close, as you should. If I had that option, I'd mandate it across the country immediately, so people would actually do the way they should do it and keep themselves out of trouble and do it professionally and get all the documentation in place and run a business that is not going to come back and bite them in the butt because they try to save a few bucks on attorney's fees. And I'll remind you, when I put a lease option tenant buyer in the house, tenant buyer pays the attorney's fee, for crying out loud. So, and usually the seller pays a part of the closing cost unless I get it for nothing down. If I get it for nothing down, then I'll pay the closing cost. I mean, to me, using attorneys is a no-brainer. And I'm going to tell you something else. Trying to save money by not using attorneys your entire career could be wiped out in one instant where you wished you had used an attorney. Let the professionals do what they do best. Pay them a little bit of money and you go make the big money. And again, come learn how to buy properties in New Jersey or anywhere else. And because the grass is not greener on the other side, it comes with manure under it. Can't do it where you live, you won't do it anywhere else either.
That's right. All right, Ron, I think that's all we have for today.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's cool. Here we are, man, heading into Thanksgiving. So almost out of year. You guys got plenty of time to get something going before the end of the year. And I wish you'd come see me. I'm telling you, you have no idea what a difference spending the 4 days with me is going to make in your life until after you've been. And if you don't believe that, ask somebody that has been, if you know someone. And by the way, after you're gone, we'll put you in a Facebook group with people who have attended that you can communicate with. So, everything starts with education and then it goes to implementation. And I'll tell you the truth, education is worthless without implementation. That's why we have all the implementation already there for you. All the contacts, all the outsourcing, everything you need to do business is right there. And you'll meet some really quality people there as well. A couple of teachers and then some students that are kicking butt. So, it's one that I teach live. I only do that every other month now. And this happens to be right here in Florida. So go get registered right now. All right. See you next week.